The pulse do 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 do. The pulse do 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 do.
On today's episode of the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast, two stories rooted right here in the region. First, ticks are spreading across Canada, and the Eastern Townships is already in the thick of it. We sit down with Dr. Jade Savage of Bishop's University, founder of eTick, a national platform now backed by $1 million federal contract, to talk about what's out there and what you need to know. Then, a story that's been waiting decades to be told. A small lake hidden in the hills between Knowlton and Mansonville, built by hand by Polish survivors of Soviet deportation who found their way, against almost impossible odds, to Quebec's Eastern Townships. Jonathan Durand joins us to share his family's history. Two very different stories, both unmistakably from here. I'm William Crooks. Ticks are spreading across Canada, and in the Eastern Townships, they're already out. Today I'm sitting down with Dr. Jade Savage, a full professor in the Department of Biology and Biochemistry at Bishop's University in Lennoxville, and the founder of eTick, a free national community science platform that lets Canadians submit photos of ticks for expert identification. Dr. Savage has spent years building eTick from a Quebec-focused project into a coast-to-coast operation, now approaching 100,000 tick identifications. And just this week, the Public Health Agency of Canada formalized what that work is worth, signing a $1 million 3-year contract with Bishops to keep the platform running and growing. We talked about where ticks are spreading, what's coming up from the United States, how AI might change the way the platform works, and what people in the townships need to know right now. This is the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast. Let's get into it.
Yeah, maybe just situate yourself in context, your connection to Bishops, and your 30 seconds from your expertise in ticks and your history with them.
Sure. So I'm a professor at Bishop's University. I'm an entomologist, and one of my research passions, I guess, is ticks, the different species, their distribution in Canada, and I'm the person who launched and operates the eTick platform, which is a site that people can use to submit pictures of ticks and get identification and information of medical relevance for free. And
how long has the eTick platform been going?
So we went public in 2018 in Quebec, but then we gradually expanded to the rest of Canada, and now we have almost full coverage for the last few years, and so it's grown a lot since then.
Fantastic. And tell me about developments over time. I mean, obviously more people are using it. Are you collecting more and more data each year, and how is that data being used?
Yes. So we're close to reaching 100,000 tick identification.
Wow.
And every year we are getting more. So this means that, and again, the distribution of ticks and their abundance changing so fast that for a lot of Canadians, ticks are not something that we're used to. And every year, thousands and thousands of people will experience their first contact with a tick. So that is a reason why the site keeps on being more and more popular. There are more ticks. But there's also more people that know about the platform. And so now that we have collected data for several years, we can really start looking for trends. So long-term patterns take a long time to study, but we are now seeing clearly that some areas are seeing more every year, that their distribution is expanding. So that applies to both Quebec and Ontario for the black-legged tick. And we're also spending a lot of our energy trying to spot potentially new species that may not have yet established. So right now we're being sort of on the first line for potentially what I'm going to call new invaders, like the Asian longhorn tick that's in the U.S. and that's moving up very quickly. That one is an issue for cattle production, and not so much of an issue for humans, but it is one that we're keeping our eyes on. And so we are really sort of able to monitor these potential new introductions in real time because we identify material within 2 days of submission.
And I guess, I'm kind of burying the lead here, but the big news is the $1 million, is it a grant?
No, it's not a grant, it's a contract. So we've developed through research for all these years has panned out because when the government of Canada was looking, so there was a call for tender, and they were trying to find a platform that could carry out fixed surveillance across the country with very, clear protocols and established contacts. We had such a platform on hand. So basically, this is going to allow us to continue our work. And so with this money, we can pay our staff because they don't identify themselves. We don't use AI at the moment. We've developed some AI tools to improve some workflow, which we haven't implemented yet.
Okay.
Identification requires humans. There's too many variables here, and the picture quality that we get is not great. And so we have trained personnel in all provinces, so we need to pay these people. So that money is going to be for that. We train, so we need money for training, administration, and then setting up data agreement exchanges with researchers and different governments. So it's going to allow us to really optimize our operation, but also maximize what can be done in terms of both surveillance, prevention, and research with the eTick data that is collected.
Okay. And you said you're using AI in a few ways. You haven't fully do you have plans in the near future of expanding? And what would that look like in terms of artificial intelligence use?
We're looking at, first off, an algorithm that would allow to rate the picture quality. So our team spend a lot of time having to go through pictures and say, oh, your picture's not great. Then they send a message saying, please send us a new picture. But we're trying to implement something that would give the user, the submitter, a response in real time, so that instead of saying thank you for your submission, someone's going to look at it. If your picture is of poor quality, you will be told as you're uploading it. And so you have the picture, and now avoid you throwing the tick out because maybe 7 hours later, someone's going to contact you, so your picture's not good enough. So that is the first thing. So a real-time triage that would just say, this picture is probably good enough for identification, or it's not. So that would save everyone a lot of time, the users, but also my team.
Okay.
And the second possibility is that in some provinces, we have a lot of American dog ticks. They're very easy to identify, and so through AI, we could have a very simple sorting algorithm that would allow us to sort of have those identified automatically, and every having to be processed by humans. But that second item is to my mind still quite imperfect. So we're definitely putting more effort into the first, which would be an advantage for everyone using the platform.
You've got this money. You told me what you're going to use it for. I mean, tell me what it looks like for you over the next summer, I guess, in terms of how it's going to roll out.
Well, right now, so I think for the user side of things, it's the service we offer is not going to change. So this money allows me to train personnel to make sure our operations continue. It also allowed us to redo our Apple, our iOS application. The code was getting dated, and we had to basically rebuild a brand new app for it. So it allows it. It's a little bit like when you have a great house, and now you need cash for repairs. It doesn't show when you redo the foundations, but it's necessary.
Right.
So we're going to make sure that we use those funds to make our numeric input stronger. But also to improve certain aspects. So we are, for example, we're revamping the user interface on the application.
Okay.
And we're also in the process of thinking about developing workshops for different health related things like, for example, medical students or pharmacists, easy tools that could allow these people to better understand how to identify quickly, but also how to remove ticks and things like that. So those are some of the activities that we're working on. But literally this money is mostly to allow us to continue to provide our services across the country. So it's a large operation, and we are so grateful to be able to continue. So everybody wins.
Fantastic. One more little thing. Do you happen to have the picture of the tick situation in the townships right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I checked it this morning because I figured that
okay.
might come. I mean, the township and the Montérégie region, we're unfortunately sort of a black-legged tick champion.
Okay.
So those are areas with lots of black-legged ticks. This year, as up to May 1st, so we had a weird spring, which is basically something we can say every year. I listen to myself, and I think I say this every year. But in terms of black-legged tick abundance so far, I see we're within sort of an average year. So we have more than last year, but less than 2024.
Okay.
There are natural fluctuations. But
sure.
For sure, the long-term trend is definitely that it's on the ups.
Right.
For the black-legged tick. But we do have other tick species that are going to be, some of them which are active now, and some of which are going to be active a little bit later. So usually it's better for us to look at the profile on a yearly basis, but it is definitely the black-legged ticks are out. They've been out for several weeks now. A lot of people are surprised because the temperature was quite cold 2 weeks ago, but they were already out and about. So it's time to really make sure that you protect your animals, that you inspect your animals, and that if you go outside. Last weekend was very, very warm, so people were walking around in T-shirts and shorts. The ticks were out, and so tick checks are important as well. Even if people think that they're not moving because it's too cold, that's not true. They've been up for several weeks now.
Okay, and one last little thing. The reason why the numbers are rising is because the climate, it's getting warmer, right, in the area, the winters are shorter. Is that fair to say?
It's possible. I mean, I can't answer clearly that question. However, there are multiple factors. So one of them might be that the climate has now been good for them, maybe not for us, but yes, climate change is definitely at the core of the reason why these ticks have managed to establish here. Now, as to why there's more abundance, it's linked to many other aspects. For example, these ticks need to feed, and they only feed once per life stage. So technically once a year, almost, and they need a lot of small rodents to do that, so mice and all sorts of small rodents, and then larger animals like deer. And so it's basically an ecosystemic situation. And so in areas, for example, where there are lots of deer, there will often be an increase in the abundance of black-legged ticks. So it's really a complex question, but climate change definitely has something to do with the establishment of ticks here, and then why we have more, though, that is sort of a more complex answer.
Okay, fantastic. That's great for me. Is there anything important my questions missed?
Again, I just want to repeat that people can go to eTick to submit their tick pictures, or they can download our mobile apps. It's free. All of it is free. The services are free. So this is not a for-profit activity. So I said it's a contract with the Public Health Agency, but this is done at Business University, and therefore we're not a company, and this is not a lucrative purpose.
Right. Okay.
So we're really it's not because ticks are here that we do not need people to keep us to help us keep track of things. And as I said, there are new things happening all the time. So it's not because we've seen the tick last year that the tick that you will see this year will be the same. So we encourage people to visit and submit multiple times if it so happens that they were unfortunately enough to encounter multiple ticks.
That was Dr. Jade Savage, full professor at Bishop's University and the founder of eTick. If you've found a tick or you just want to stay informed, the platform is free, it's fast, and it's at eTick.ca. You can also download the app on iOS or Android. If you found this conversation useful, share it with someone who spends time outdoors. And if you're in the townships, do a tick check tonight. For the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast, I'm William Crooks. Thanks for listening. This is the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast, and I am William Crooks. In the hills between Knowlton and Mansonville, there's a small lake that almost nobody knows about. It was built by hand, dammed from a creek, by a community of Polish families who had survived Soviet deportation, crossed the Caspian Sea, and spent years in refugee camps in East Africa before making their way to Montreal and eventually to the Eastern Townships of Quebec. Today I'm sitting down with Jonathan Durand, whose grandmother was among those survivors, to hear how one of the most remarkable untold stories in this region came to be.
What is it, like a Polish neighborhood in Potton?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it was about 15 families that built cottages there in the 60s and 70s, and almost all of them had a family member who'd been in Africa through the Polish refugee camps there. So,
Okay.
I mean, over time they've been sold off, and it's not the same. But when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, it was like very much like a summer community of these people that had all grown up in Africa, basically as Polish refugees.
Okay. Just before we start in earnest, what's your background with the townships? It sounds like did you live here or did you summer here, or what's the deal?
Well, so my grandmother was one of those survivors. So my family still have a cabin out there.
In Potton.
In Potton, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. And so you know it from firsthand experience from family stories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so give me the story from the beginning. These are Polish refugees from the Second World War?
Yeah, so these are, I'll say kids because, the people that ended up buying the houses were all children when they were deported.
Okay.
So these are all people who were born in Eastern Poland, before or in the years leading up to the Second World War. So this is territory that now forms part of Lithuania, Belarus, and northwestern Ukraine.
Okay.
So 1939, at the outset of the Second World War, Germany invaded Poland from the west, but the Soviet Union invaded 2 weeks later from the east. And all of these people who ended up going on to build these houses in the townships were from that area that was occupied by the Soviet Union. So the Soviets deported somewhere up to 1 million Polish citizens from infants to great-grandparents across Siberia to work as forced laborers, essentially.
Okay.
And then when the Soviet Union was invaded in June 1941, the Soviets became allied with the British. The British were already allied with the Poles, so they negotiated for some of these Polish deportees to leave the Soviet Union through Iran. So,
wow.
So these that left through Iran, there were 120,000 Polish citizens that were evacuated from the USSR to Iran in 1942, 1943, most of them across the Caspian Sea. It was 76,000 soldiers, Polish soldiers who were part of the Anders Army, ANDERS Army, and the rest were their family members. So it was 76,000 soldiers and however many that is remaining. I don't have the number in front of me. Yeah, 44,000. So 44,000 refugees were evacuated with the army. And then from there, they were sent to refugee camps across the Middle East, India, New Zealand, and East Africa. So there were 20,000 Polish refugees, more or less, across East Africa. And the biggest of those camps was in Tingeru, Tengeru, Tanzania, which is about 5,000, Polish evacuees. And when they closed the camps in 1949, 1950, a number of the Polish refugees from those camps came to Montreal. So there were 123 Polish orphans specifically who were sponsored to come to Montreal or to Quebec. And some of those orphans became, the families that ended up buying up land and building cottages in the Eastern Townships.
Okay.
In the area around, between Knowlton and Mansonville, basically.
Right. And do you know why they chose that area? Was it chosen for them, or did they as a group think that was a good idea, or what was the idea?
I don't know the specifics on why that area was chosen, but I do know that, when my mom was a kid, my mom was born in 1952 in England, and they emigrated to Canada in 1954. And when she was a child, they used to go with the different Polish parishes in Montreal out to the area close to Mansonville. There was I don't know, I think now it's a private house, but back then it was Owl's Nest, or it became Owl's Nest. Yeah, it was like a bar on the 243.
Okay.
Just past the Rocket, when you turn around the bend, past the little white church, and you go down the hill, there's like a bit of a field on the right-hand side, and it was like an auberge. So they had small cabins there that you could rent, like very small little, one-room cabins that people could go up and stay up there, with their families in the summer.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, this is where the Polish community in Montreal would go out and have sort of like their summer picnic. It was like a big event. That was in I'm talking about the, late 1950s, into the 1960s, sometime around then. So it was in the years after that they started building houses like right around that area.
And I was told, Augusta told me that these houses were distinctively Polish.
Well, so I have the reason that I told you that is because when I went to Belarus for the first time, right, I was looking into my family history, and I went back to the village that my grandmother was born in and deported from, and the village that she was raised in Poland at the time looked very similar to this little community of families. So it's not that the houses were specifically Polish, but it was a lot of small A-frames, built off of a dirt road, sort of like everybody with 1 to 5 acres or something. So as I told her, when I was in Belarus, I had the feeling of being back in Houghton.
Right.
Because it was the same setup, right? But at that point, I don't know, in my early 30s. That's when I realized, they reconstructed a version of the villages they grew up in Poland. Yeah. And when I was a kid, they used to, have summer parties because they were at that point in their 40s and 50s, I guess, or a little bit older. And they would lay down plywood and have polka parties.
Okay. So it's my understanding that this kind of unique cultural activity hasn't really persisted. It's not really like that anymore.
It's not the same because as years went by, and I don't know what to call them, the Polish survivors, or let's say the Polish survivors, as they got older and started passing away, some of the property was sold off to people from outside the community. When it, first existed, it was, I can't remember how big the plot is, but it's like 300 acres or something divided by amongst a bunch of families. And then sort of one by one, a lot of those lots got sold off to families or to people outside of the Polish community. So it lost that spirit of, community in the same way.
Sure. Okay, so there aren't any more distinctively Polish summer gatherings like there were?
No.
Okay.
No, nothing specific. Although, there are poles around that entire area, but specific to where my family was, like there's an association that manages the land, that manages the area or the community. So we do have yearly association meetings, but it's not quite the same. I mean, I'm talking about as a kid, like we would run around like whipping up carrots from, like the Polish grandmother's farm or Polish grandmother's garden next door. And, our grandparents would all go play poker and rummy with each other at night. And so there was like a real community feeling back then.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit more about that. So polka, gardens. What else? What was distinctive about it that you remember?
Well,
the food, I assume.
What's that?
The food?
The food, yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a lot of Polish cooking happening around back then. I mean, there was the feeling of, I took it for granted at the time, you're a kid, first of all, but second, I didn't understand how sort of communal it was and how safe it was, in the sense that I could walk through the forest cutting through other families' properties and didn't even think about it, because it was just sort of understood that, on some level we shared this area together, and I could go knock on the door of, any family and sort of feel safe or protected, or like that I was somewhere familiar. So in my family's case, my grandfather passed away in 1975, and the house wasn't finished yet. So the community ended up coming together to help my grandmother finish building the house. There was, that sort of like mutual aid, or spirit of mutual aid. They get in tightly knit communities.
Great. What when you talk about when you were a kid, is this the 80s? Is this the 90s?
This is the 80s, yeah. So it's So I was born in the late 70s. So I'm talking about the 1980s into the early 1990s.
And from your knowledge, I mean, where did these Polish immigrants, did they disperse somewhere? Did they go somewhere else? They just kind of integrated into Canadian society? I mean, what happened?
Well, they all held on to the houses until the grandparents passed away.
Ah, okay.
So these are people who worked in the city, typically in Montreal, but then the family started to move to Toronto, to Ottawa, in the 70s and 80s, especially with the political situation in Quebec.
Sure.
It was too familiar to them, let's say. So a lot of the families started moving further afield. But they would still come up and spend time in the summers, but instead of spending, 2 or 3 or 4 months, they would come up for a couple weeks. But yeah, so it was as time passed and the grandparents started passing away that their children and grandchildren began selling off their properties to families outside the community, or to people outside the community.
Okay, and why do you, tell me if this is maybe a little bit of a sensitive question, but why wouldn't they kind of want to keep, this sounds fantastic, why wouldn't they want to keep it going? Is it something maybe the kids didn't find as important as the grandparents did to have this kind of communal, place of a certain ethnic heritage? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think it's, again, sort of like the specifics of Quebec play a certain role, right? Where because of the referendum and the
right, okay,
and the political tensions in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a lot of the families were Anglophones, right? So they started moving to Ottawa or to Toronto or to Hamilton for, job security,
right,
etc. So it just became harder and harder to maintain, because now instead of driving 90 minutes from Montreal, you're having to drive 7 hours.
Right, Hamilton. Sure.
So it became harder for them over the decades to maintain that sense of community. But it was something that everybody appreciated, at the time, definitely. But I think it's also sort of like a typical diaspora immigration story where over the decades, people start to assimilate into Canadian culture and,
Right.
stop seeing the importance of having these sort of enclaves that provide a certain amount of comfort and also safety to the community. So that stopped being as important to people.
Thank you to Jonathan Durand for sharing that story and for trusting the Pulse with a piece of history that deserves to be told. You can find the full written article at the Pulse of the Eastern Townships, pulsetownships.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Stories like this survive because people pass them on. That's it for today's episode of the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast. If you found a tick or want to stay ahead of the season, head to eTick.ca. The platform is free, it's fast, and the app is available on iOS and Android. And if today's second story moved you, or if you have a personal connection to the Potton Polish community or Sopala Lake, we want to hear from you. Reach out, share what you know, and help keep that story alive. For the Pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast, I am William Crooks. Thanks for listening, and always remember, keep that finger on the pulse.
The pulse doo 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 doo. The pulse doo 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 doo. Townships interviews. Don't forget breaking news. The pulse, the pulse, the pulse. Broadcast just for you. We're heading out for a cruise, or lying there for a snooze. The pulse, the pulse, the pulse. Broadcast just for you. Hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know that gal too. The pulse, the pulse, the pulse. Broadcast just for you. The townships are the muse. Make sure to choose the pulse, the pulse, the pulse, the pulse. The pulse, the pulse, the pulse, the pulse. The pulse of the Eastern Townships broadcast just for you.